I'm 76 years old, and there's a sentence I've been carrying around for a long time that I never said out loud. Not because it was dramatic, but because it sounded reasonable. Nothing in my life collapsed. There was no scandal, no explosion, no single mistake I could point to and say, "This is where it went wrong." From the outside, my life made sense. I worked hard. I built something real. I provided. I stayed focused. But I've realized that you don't need to abandon something to lose it. Sometimes all you have to do is keep postponing it. I spent 40 years telling myself a story that sounded like wisdom, but was actually a slow-motion exit from my own life. I thought love was patient enough to wait until I was done building. I didn't see that the building was never going to be finished. If you are currently in your grind phase, telling yourself that your absence is just an investment in your family's future, you need to hear exactly how that investment pays out when the clock runs out. It's not a tragedy, it's a thinning, and that is much harder to survive. I remember the smell of sawdust and diesel in 1978. I was 30 years old, and I was starting a firm. I worked out of a small office with a window that looked out onto a brick wall. I can still see the blueprint dust on my shoes. Back then, the logic was ironclad. I told myself, I'm choosing work over family for now so that I never have to choose between them later. It felt like a mathematical equation. Every hour I spent away from the house was a brick in a fortress of stability. I remember missing my son's 3rd birthday because of a contract negotiation in another city. I didn't feel like a bad father. I felt like a hero. I was out in the world, hunting for the resources that would make his life easy. I told myself that consistency in work could make up for inconsistency everywhere else. But that was the first time I used logic to override instinct. Logic told me the bank account mattered. Instinct told me the birthday cake mattered. I chose logic. And once you start winning that argument with yourself, it gets easier every time. I wasn't choosing work over family. I was choosing stability. The words protected me. They made my choices feel justified instead of examined. By the 90s, the firm was successful. I had moved from the sawdust to the corner office, but the pace didn't slow down. It just changed shape. I told myself the pace was temporary. I just needed to hit the next milestone. Then I'd be present. Then I'd be the father and husband I imagined I would be. I confused being reliable with being available. I was reliable. The mortgage was paid, the vacations were booked, but I was never available. I remember Sarah, my wife, looking at me across the kitchen island. She wasn't angry, she was just quiet. I came home at 8 p.m. too tired to talk, my mind still running through spreadsheets. I convinced myself that effort counted more than presence, that my exhaustion was proof of my love. When I saw disappointment in her eyes, I buried it under productivity. I treated guilt like a distraction. I measured my life in outputs, progress, growth, numbers that moved in the right direction. Those things were easy to track. They didn't ask how I felt or who I was becoming. Relationships were different. They were messy. They required attention without offering clear results. So I handled them the way I handled everything else. Efficiently, briefly, later. There's a specific memory from 2005 that haunts me. We were on a vacation, one of those expensive trips I'd worked so hard to pay for. We were at a resort in Mexico. We were sitting at dinner, the sun setting over the ocean. I was on my BlackBerry, checking emails. My daughter was 17 then. She asked me a question about her future, something about a dream she had of studying in Europe. I gave her a practical answer. I talked about costs, about career paths, about the logical choice. I listened just enough to respond, not enough to understand. I watched her face close up. She didn't argue. She just stopped talking. I confused the absence of conflict with the presence of connection. Because she didn't scream, I assumed everything was fine. That assumption saved me effort. It also cost me depth. I told myself she'd understand later, once she saw how much I'd provided for her. I didn't see that I was training her to live without me. I was teaching her that my attention was a finite resource that had to be earned, rather than a gift that was always there. Postponement became my default setting. I didn't think of what I was doing as neglect. Neglect sounds careless. This was organized. It was polite. When invitations came to go on a weekend trip or just sit and talk, I postponed them. I'd say, next time, when things slow down, when I have more energy. Next time became a habit. I stopped asking questions that didn't have practical answers. I didn't want to sit with feelings I couldn't solve. Being predictable made people stop asking much from me. And because nothing broke, I told myself nothing was being lost. But a life isn't ruined all at once. It's shaped by what you repeatedly move away from without noticing. I was very good at managing myself. What I wasn't good at was staying open once openness stopped being convenient. The realization didn't arrive with a heart attack like David's. It didn't arrive with a divorce. It came on an ordinary Tuesday evening, about a year ago. I was sitting in my living room. The furniture was expensive. The house was exactly what I'd dreamed of building in 1978, and yet the quiet didn't feel earned. It felt empty. I looked at my phone and realized I had very few people I could call without feeling like an intruder. My kids were grown, living their own lives. They were polite. They were cordial, as David says about Emma. But we had no inside jokes. We had no shared history of presence, only a shared history of provision. I had been telling myself for years that I'd show up differently later. But later wasn't a moment. It was a pattern I kept postponing. And patterns don't reverse on intention alone. Even if I wanted to rebuild that depth now, I wouldn't know how. The instincts had gone quiet from lack of use. I had practiced distance long enough that it had become my default. Reaching out now felt awkward, like knocking on a door I'd ignored for too long. What I live with now isn't grief. It's the awareness of what didn't happen. I didn't betray anyone. I didn't abandon anyone. I stayed comfortable. And comfort slowly replaced connection. I mistook restraint for wisdom. I mistook distance for maturity. Those beliefs didn't ruin my life. They thinned it. I see the Davids of the world, the ones with the $200 million companies, and they talk about their sacrifices. But they were sacrificing the wrong things. They were sacrificing the present for a future that is essentially a desert. I don't feel cheated. I feel clear. I'm 76, and I understand now that a life isn't measured in what you build. It's measured in what you stay present for. Everything else is a footnote. I don't sit here wishing for a redo. I stay with what is. My life is orderly, it is predictable, it is largely intact, and it is unfinished. If you are currently managing your life, being sensible, and telling yourself you'll get to the depth later, stop. Later is a lie. The only time that actually shapes a life is the time you are physically and emotionally present for. Your company will not remember you. Your outputs will be forgotten within a decade. But your absence is permanent. It shapes the people you love. It defines your legacy far more than your bank account ever will. Close the laptop, go home. Don't just show up for the big moments. Show up for the boring ones. Show up for the soccer games that don't matter and the dinners that are silent. Because if you don't, you'll end up like me, rich in logic, but bankrupt in connection. Don't wait for permission to be present. Permission is never coming. You have to choose it. Today, while the lights are still on.